To share with you my appalling experience with the North Carolina Employment Security Commission and the Department of Labor, mainly the Employment Security Commission. Basically, I'm a small employer that employs 20 or less employees here in North Carolina. So first off, I run into a situation where somebody files for unemployment, which we've only had 3 in 9.5 years, because we don't fire you unless you deserve it. But either way, we mailed our response back, the Form 500 AB in certified mail, in which it was received on the 29th of October, within the time frame that I'm legally supposed to have it in, right? So I decided, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call on 11/5 just to make sure they got it, because I tried to check online, and of course, out of the 9 years that I've had an account online with them, they've never had any of my statuses or anything online for you to actually check, as you should be able to do. So I call, and I speak to an individual who eventually tells me, Mike, who tells me, hey, go ahead and fax it to these two different numbers. He was a lot of good help. I faxed it to those two numbers, and he told me to check back tomorrow to check and see if everything had been processed. I then call on the November 7th, 2012, spoke to Mary. Mary, I said, hey, is there anything in there? She says, no, nothing's in there. I said, well, Mary, how often are faxes delivered? Oh, twice a day. I said, interesting. Well, I said, how often is mail delivered? Once a day. Oh, and you still don't have my thing from 10/29, my reform that I submitted, and now you still don't have my faxes that I sent yesterday. Okay, so then Mary tells me to fax it to another number. So I fax it to another number. Mary then called me on 11/8 and said, hey, we don't see anything attached to the file. I called the afternoon of Friday, 11/9, and I spoke to the supervisor, Roy, who decides to tell me they've already made a determination. They made it on the 7th, before they ever got my faxes, and basically made it, no response from the employer. So I mailed it certified, it got there, I faxed it twice, spoke to 3 different people, and it was never processed. So being a little PO'd, I decided to call back again, and later I spoke on 11/9. I decided I was going to drove down. They directed me somewhere else. 11/14, I spoke to Veronica, who tells me that she's going to be meeting with the supervisor Roy, his supervisor that day, and would be getting back to me because they do have the right within that law to revoke it and to redo the initial determination, as they should have done. Never got back to me. In fact, of all these people that I emailed, nobody got back to me. Not a single person. Okay? So that goes to there. The interesting thing about this is I send this email out. Oh, look, and then that was on the November 16th. Yeah, November 16th, this email was sent out to all the ESC people. And look, here's a letter to all the employers dated November 20th, basically stating that one of the most important pieces of correspondence for request of separation information from an employer is 500 AB. This form is mailed to the employer when somebody has filed for an unemployment claim and the business is identified as the last employer. Unfortunately, a large number of employers, roughly 40%, fail to return this form. No, you fail to process it. You fail to process it. So let's go on to the next issues I have. One of my other 3 cases in 9.5 years, issue 2, basically the file was lost. The person appealed the decision, the initial determination, and basically during the during the appeals hearing, I asked the referee if he has read the termination letter. He shuffles through some papers, and it basically comes out that he specifically states, we seem to have lost the file. I can't just lose files in my business. That's not how it works. I can't just not process paperwork from employers. I can't just not file my taxes because I failed to process the payroll and all my income and whichever. No. Issue 3. Of 9.5 years, I've had an account with them. Not once have I actually been able to check the status to actually validate that any information is being processed or whichever. And once again, just another thing that just doesn't work, and they don't keep up. Okay, so that's great and dandy. I get no response from not a single one of these people from the ESC. I had to do all my own legwork, and they still just process it. And basically, their resolution was, well, you'll just have to do an appeal. That's wonderful. So, and after a nice little letter saying that, employers don't respond with these forms, bullpucky, okay? So then I finally emailed the Department of Labor. Finally get a response back from the head referee. And the head referee, you ready for the responses? Basically, let's look at the one in regards to the processing of the claim. While I can't address or explain the issues with your faxes or letters not being received or processed in a timely manner in the UI claims process, I can promise that those issues or problems will not impact or detract from the employer's ability to present evidence and testimony at the appeals hearing. So in other words, screw you. You have laws that you have to return in this Form 500AB, but guess what? We don't have to process it. And now that's after the fact is too bad. That's appalling. That is appalling. That's our hard-earned tax money or paid right there. We pay their salary as employers. Okay? Look on issue number 2. This is even more appalling. Occasionally, documents are misfiled or fail to find their way to our appeals case files. Unfortunately, we often are unaware that our documents are missing until the time of the hearing when claimants or employers point out things they submitted which we don't have. While I'd like to say that the occasions where documents are missing from the appeals case file are rare, the reality is that with our volume of appeals and volume of paper moving from one unit to the next, it does happen. What? What? I can't lose files. I can't just lose a patient's chart. Can you as an employer or even you as an individuals out there, they're not processing claims, but employers, my goodness, the standards are completely different. And basically, it's a screw you. That's the case. Okay, how about somebody works a little overtime rather than getting off at 4:30 in the afternoon and actually file all the stuff away or convey things over that are critical for these determinations. Lastly, he says, oh yeah, regarding the internet thing, I'm going to forward it on to an individual, Antoine. Okay, great. And Antoine's going to do something. I haven't heard squat. Nothing's changed online. He has not gotten back to me as he says that he'll be getting back to me about. Nothing has changed. So these are hard-earned. You wonder why we're in an unemployment deficit? It's because everybody is getting unemployment because nobody is processing the other 40% of the Form 500ABs that I'm sure businesses are diligently sending in that the Employment Security Commission is not processing. It's sad. Something needs to change.